We create our own reality. We create that reality from our perception of reality, conscious perception, and 95% of human behavior comes from subconscious perception.
Have we been in those states of awareness before where we weren't limited to this perceptual cage that we are in largely in the mass population?
We are living in a fake reality. We're living in the equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. What I call prime reality was the state that I was talking about, because we were at one point aware that we are consciousness. And that's because there is a force that seeks to manipulate humanity that could not possibly do that if we were in an expanded state of awareness.
Over the last few years, this podcast has been about one thing: exploring the deepest conversations on consciousness, transformation, and the unknown. But there's always been something missing. For months, my team and I have been working on something that finally fills that gap. This isn't the space where I'll dive deep on what it's about, but I'll be sharing everything very soon in a live session. If you've ever felt that you were meant for something bigger, this is it. It's happening very soon, and I want everyone to be part of this sacred moment. Hit the link in the description to sign up or scan the QR code on screen, and I'll see you all there. Much love. David Icke, welcome on Just Tap In, brother. What are you most excited about and hopeful about for what is currently unfolding with humanity and where we're headed in the future?
My ambition in this interview is not to melt, to be honest, because it's a very, very hot day in England. So if you see me going dark here and dripping, that's the reason. It's not stress. So what do I want for humanity? Well, people talk about solutions. What's the solution? And I don't talk about solutions because solutions tend to lead to more problems in search of more solutions. For me, the way to change something is to look for the cause of why what you want to change is happening, is possible. And all the way through this, I'm in my 36th year of researching this and writing about this now. There has been a very common theme, and it happens and spans the dimensions. And that is that there is an effort, a long time effort, to isolate what you might call incarnate consciousness from its infinite, expansive self, the real I, which is just consciousness. It's not a form. Form is the way that consciousness experiences different dimensions of realities, yes. If I was in my pure consciousness form here, I couldn't tap the keys. I couldn't pick up this glass because my consciousness is on a completely different frequency to this world of materialism. So we take on a vehicle that has the same, as within the same frequency band as that we wish to interact with. So there are endless forms that we take to interact with different realities, different bands of frequency, if you like. But in the end, We're none of those things. They are vehicles to experience. What we are is consciousness, spirit. These words are necessary for communication in our reality, but really they're almost beyond words. It's a state of being aware. And the question is, how aware? You can be, in the end, if you become expansive enough, you can become infinitely aware. But most people obviously are not in that state, not least because there are systematic efforts to disconnect us from that level of awareness, or even expanded levels of awareness, never mind, the whole way. And that's because there is a force that seeks to manipulate humanity that could not possibly do that if we were in an expanded state of awareness, because we'd see it and we'd also tap into that power to override it and overwhelm it. So I've said all the way through for decades now that the foundation of human control is control of perception. That's the absolute foundation, bottom line of how humans are controlled. Because what we perceive leads to how we behave. If you look at, many recent examples, if you can get people to perceive a situation in a certain way, they will behave in ways that reflect that belief system. For instance, if you can get them into a state of fear that some bogeyman's coming, or some bogey disease, then they will respond from a point of view of that fear, and they will do what you tell them because you think, or they think, that you're the ones that can protect them from what you've manipulated them to fear. So everything is perception. The number of people in full knowledge who are pushing the world in a direction towards global dystopia is absolutely tiny compared with the global population. And therefore, you may be able to physically hurt people in a relatively small area with the military or law enforcement or whatever, but you're not going to control 8 billion people from a relative handful unless you do two things. You control their perceptions so they behave the way you want them to, and you take from the target population and you put them in uniform, and you get the target population to control itself. And all of these things are only possible because of the myopia of perception, not least self-identity, that we've been manipulated into. And so what's the cause of the problem? That we have been manipulated to perceive reality and to perceive ourselves in a incredibly myopic way, and a distorted way in which we see ourselves as human when we are actually consciousness having a very brief experience as human. So if you look at the way perceptions are manipulated, it takes a very predictable course. First of all, you want incarnate consciousness to believe it is the human, that it is the body, that that's who it is. Not that that's what it's experiencing through, but that's what it is. So you want self-identity to focus upon the idea that we are a man, a woman, we are this religion, that race, this race, this income bracket, whatever. In other words, you want people to self-identify with the labels of what we call human. Now, once you do that, and most people are there because it's incessant, but once you do that, you are in the realm of limitation. You are in the realm of I can't, in the realm of little me, I have no power. And that which has the perception of having no power looks out of itself to that which it perceives to have power, to make a difference, to know more than you know. And what are those people? They are so-called experts. They are academics. They are scientists. They're doctors. They're politicians, etc. So the idea is that you first of all convince people that all they are is a human and that they have no power, and then they look out of themselves, outside of themselves, for that which they think has power, and suddenly you have the very dynamic, the top-down hierarchical structure of control that has run this world throughout known human history. You know, if you look at what we know of human history, or what we think we know anyway, there's a simple question that comes from it. Why is it that throughout this entire period that a few people have always controlled the many in a hierarchical structure of power? Why is that? And the answer is because the mass of the population has been convinced of its powerlessness, convinced of its subordination to that which it thinks has power, and the ability of the few to continue to manipulate people to have that perception of reality. Simple thing. If 8 billion people, not even 8 billion, even a fraction of them, said, no, we're not doing what the few tell us. We're not doing what the top of the pyramid tells us. We're not doing it. What power does the top of the pyramid have in that sense? None. It has none. And therefore, the answer is staring us in the face. We cease to cooperate with our own enslavement. But people don't do that because they know their place, or think they do, that they're in this hierarchy and they're up there and they call the shots and we're down here and we basically do as we're told. And that perceptual dynamic has gone on throughout human history, which is why the few have always controlled the many and continue to do so. And so removing the cause is to engage in a total reevaluation of self-identity, in the sense that you stop identifying as a human, just a brief experience, and you start identifying as an expression of infinite awareness, having that brief experience. And I can tell you from my own kind of story over the last 36 years, that when you do that, everything changes. Because another massive part of this a crucial part of this control is to keep from us the true nature of the I, but also the true nature of the reality that we're experiencing. They want us to believe that this is a physical, solid, material world. You only got to look at quantum physics to see that that's not true. You go deep enough into the atom, into any of these so-called building blocks of material reality, and you find that they're not material at all. So we are, first of all, in a situation where the few, the inner core, know what this reality is and how it works, and they just want to keep it from us so that we go on through our lives believing that the world is as we appear to experience it, when it's not. And if you have the knowledge that of how the world is and what the world is, and your target population doesn't know that, you are already in a phenomenal position of power over the mass of the population. And so we have two worlds. We have one world, which is what I call the global cult, which is a network of secret societies, fiercely compartmentalized. Even most people within the secret societies don't know what the real game is. And that global cult, which is like a you can imagine like a spider's web around the planet of secret societies and seven secret groups with an interlocking leadership ultimately. Through that network, at the inner core level at least, this knowledge of what reality is passed on from generation to generation. So they know what they're dealing with and how it works. At the same time, and this can be clearly shown from research, this cult, or elements of it, have created the sources of communication and information that the mass of the people have. Education, the media, on and on. And the idea is that while the greater knowledge is passed on through the secret society network, the population in general is kept in ignorance of that knowledge. And what's emerging more and more, I've been writing about this for decades now, is that we create our own reality. We create that reality from our perception of reality, conscious perception, and 95% of human behavior comes from subconscious perception. And so the way it would seem to work, and this would start to explain some of the strange happenings within quantum physics, is that our perceptions are generating a frequency. They're generating an energetic field that relates to the nature of the perceptions. So if we are in a state of depression or resentment or hatred or fear, anxiety, we're generating a low, slow frequency. And if we're in a state of love and a state of joy and appreciation, we are in a high, fast frequency. And the difference between the two dictates the nature of our reality, because that field of perception, that field of emotion and thought that we call perception, is interacting with the quantum realm, and it is manifesting in the physical world. a reflection of that state of being, that state of perception. Give you an example. If you are in a perceptual state, in a self-identity state that says, I have no power, I have no control over my life, that's what you believe, then that goes out as a frequency, interacts with the quantum realm, and manifests in a so-called materialism, a reflection of that perception. And so people then experience the fact that they have no power. My experience, look, I have no power. Everything I try, nothing works, and all that. But they don't realize they're in a feedback loop, that their perceptions are in a feedback loop with the quantum realm that is manifesting their reality. Now, this is a key, and it's fundamentally what this global cult wants to keep from us, because they're using it. They know that if they can infuse our perceptions of reality and our perceptions of self, not least I have no power, they know that through that feedback loop, once they've got our perception, they've got our experienced reality. So if you look at, for instance, religion, well, look at anything in this reality, and it's all about subordination. And once you are in a mode of subordination in any way, shape, or form, you are interacting with the quantum realm and manifesting a state of subordination. You're creating your own reality. And these manipulators, the inner core, know that. And so if they want to create a mass reality, they know they only have to control the mass perception, and that perception will manifest that reality. This is what we call preemptive programming is about. People have realized in recent years that they're putting out in movies and in television programs, etc., a future, like a prediction of the future. It might be sci-fi, it might be AI control, it might be all these things. And they are putting in overwhelmingly into the subconscious that sense of reality, that sense of this is what's coming, this is what the future is, and then we manifest it. We make it easy for them because our perception of reality becomes our experienced reality. And so if you look at religion, it's about subordination. Almost, there will be some, no doubt, but almost every religion is about a figure of power and subordinate followers. Doesn't matter if it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, doesn't matter. Same dynamic. And if you look at the non-religious, where they perceive authority to be the power over them, you must obey authority. I mean, what will authority do if you don't obey? All these states of perceptual subordination are creating collectively a world of subordination. And this is why it's so important, it's so vital, it's the bottom line, that the inner core of this cult keeps this information from the target population, where we think that everything is random, that it's just a coincidence, and it's not something that we're creating. It's just something that happens to us. Oh, I'm so unlucky. No such thing as good luck and bad luck. It's just creating your own reality that you like or you don't like. And these are the levels of understanding of how reality works and how we interact with it that will set us free of this perceptual prison, because that's what it is, that humanity has been in for so long.
To really sum that whole message up, I want to read a quote of yours that is, "When we free our perceptions, we free our lives. If enough of us do it, then the world becomes free into a world that, instead of being a prison, can become the paradise that it once was and can become again." I'm really curious to know where that part of the paradise that it once was came from. Have we been in those states of awareness before where we weren't limited to this perceptual cage that we are in largely in the mass population?
Well, this is something that I've been looking at and researching um, very, very deeply in the last few years. And I produced a series of books, like what I call my reality trilogy: The Trap, The Dream, and The Reveal, uh, looking at all this. It's clear to me now, and it's like not one source, it's multiple sources that lead you in the same direction, that we are living in a fake reality. We're living in the equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. What I call prime reality was the state that I was talking about in that quote of like we once were, because we were at one point aware that we are consciousness. And the trap was to create a reality that initially seemed very, very like the, I'll call it prime reality that we were experiencing before. The prime reality that still exists, by the way, still exists in the same space that I'm sitting in now and you're sitting in. It's just that we're not tuned to it anymore. And it's been described to me by many people who've been kind of out there in the other dimensions and have seen it. They've described it as like, and this came to me as well. It's like an overlay. Imagine like a Wi-Fi field. We have the internet, right? And how do we have the internet? Because we have computers that decode Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is just a radiation field encoded with enormous amounts of information. And the computer connects with that Wi-Fi field and decodes it from the pure information it is in the waveform radiation state into what we see on the screen in a very, very different state to what to how it is in the Wi-Fi field. And the human body is doing exactly that. The human body was manipulated to interact with this fake reality overlay. And it works exactly like, in theme, a computer does. I've been calling the human body a biological computer since the 1990s. So the computer connects into the Wi-Fi field, the wave field, decodes it, puts it on the screen in a completely different state. a completely different form. If you look even with mainstream science, and I say even because it's the Stone Age, most of it, then that's what the body does. We are picking up the five senses, which is the way that we interact with this overlay fake reality. The five senses pick up that waveform field level of information. The ears are a perfect example because we understand that the ears are picking up sound waves. I'm speaking now, and the people listening are hearing what I'm saying, but it's not words that are passing between us. It's the frequency carrying information. So my vocal cords are generating a wave field of information, and the ears pick up that information. They turn it into electrical information, same information, different form, and they communicate it to the brain, and the brain decodes that into the reality that we hear. Now, all the five senses work the same. We are looking in terms of sight, first of all, at the most extraordinarily narrow band of frequency. And you know, I've said this so many times. For me, children should be told at the earliest moment they can grasp it that when they look into a space, they're not seeing everything in that space. They're only seeing a tiny band of frequency, because once you realize that, everything changes. How things can happen in the hidden that you're not aware of. Mm. And according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our experience reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in different forms. And visible light, which is the only band of frequency we can see, is a smear, a fraction of the 0.005%. So we are able to see a tiny, tiny amount of what exists in the space that we are sitting in, we are experiencing. And so therefore, from that point of view alone, we are bordering on blindness in terms of what is happening in the space we're experiencing. But what's happening with sight is that we're picking up frequencies. Electrical signals are communicated to the brain, and it's the brain that sees, and it's the brain that feels, it's the brain that hears, it's the brain that smells. It's all going on in here. And so when my son was in hospital a long time ago with a broken leg, I was talking to the doctor, and they were developing, I suppose it's widespread now, a method of pain relief which was based on stopping the point of impact communicating with the brain, breaking that communication. Because if the brain doesn't get that communication, you don't feel pain. Everything is happening here and is being decoded here, just like a computer. And so we are, through the five senses, picking up these information sources from this overlay, this fake reality. And we are creating that reality, not externally. I know it appears that's what we're experiencing. We're creating it in here. The whole thing happens in here. So where is the computer? Where is the computer decoding the Wi-Fi field? It's not happening here or here or here. It's happening inside the computer. And what's fascinating to me is to see the the way that this explosion of technology and computerization and all these different aspects of it that are getting more and more extreme all the time are mirroring technologically the way that we're actually experiencing reality and decoding reality. So if you take the human body brain to be like a headset in a virtual reality game, then you pretty much got the dynamic. Because, if you go on the internet, go on YouTube, and you put in a few words relating to funny things that have happened in computer games or whatever, worse to that effect, you'll get compilation videos of people who are in a room they've been used to, they're familiar with, and they put their headset on. Now, information is being fed to the five senses. It's overridden the normal decoding systems of reality. So you put the goggles on, you put the audio on. The most sophisticated ones, you put the gloves on for the touch sense, etc. And you see people in rooms they're familiar with put their headset on and completely transform in terms of their sense of reality. They're falling off the chair, they're running away, they're screaming, all these different emotional reactions there to what is simply a technological headset with information being delivered to the senses that they weren't getting before. But it becomes their reality almost instantly. Now imagine that you're born into this biological computer, and from cradle to grave, there's no taking it off, because you see in these virtual reality compilations that people are screaming and shouting and running, and then they'll take the headset off and they'll go, "Pew, it's just a game." But with the human body that's decoding this reality, you can't take it off short of what we call death, which is just death of the body. The operating system ceases to operate. And so you're going through from cradle to grave, and this is decoding your reality for you. And this is where perception comes in. Because if you are simply following the perceptual norms, then you just accept that what you are experiencing is how reality is. The myopia of perception becomes the myopia of the way you see the world. But what happens more and more as you expand your awareness and you start to tap into levels of knowledge, information that are beyond the overlay, then suddenly you start to see the situation in a very different light. And it's that expansion of awareness that goes, hey, what is this reality? Where am I? Who am I? What's going on, really? They don't want that process to happen. So they focus your attention, and they constantly produce drama to keep you focused on the five sense reality of the five sense world. So you don't stop and ponder and just start asking the big questions. Not shall I vote for Trump or Harris, but who am I? What is this place? How did I get here? Where do I go when it's over? And when you are willing to ask those questions and pursue them and deprogram yourself from the religious programming and the perceptual programming and the cultural programming, then you start to get a view of reality that's very, very fundamentally different to what you had before, when this was delivering reality and you were accepting it for what it was, instead of going, well, hold on, what is this reality? And so in the same way that we are interacting with the quantum realm and manifesting our experience, material reality, so once you start asking the big questions, you are interacting with the quantum realm, and it will present you with answers to the big questions. But if you don't ask them, it can't, because the feedback loop can't produce answers for questions that have not been asked. And the pressure is, and the way the system works is to keep you so focused on day-to-day reality, on the reality of the so-called material world, it's not really, that these big questions don't get asked. And if you look, for instance, at mainstream science, the funding and the prestige and the professorships and the adulation overwhelmingly comes to those scientists that don't ask those big questions in search of the answers. They go, the funding, the prestige goes to those that toe the line of orthodox science, which staggeringly still, despite quantum physics, oh yeah, well, I'll acknowledge it, but then I'll crack on as if it doesn't exist. And there's a lot more to know about the quantum realm too than we know yet. They'll just crack on pushing the orthodox version of reality, which is basically we're a cosmic accident. We came from nowhere and we're going into nowhere, and that's it. Big Bang and all that stuff. That's where you get your prestige from. If you're a doctor and you expand your awareness and you start to tap into levels that give you an insight into how illness manifests and therefore how it can be overcome, just balance and imbalance in effect, then don't think you're going to, first of all, express that belief, and certainly not practice it within the mainstream of medicine, because you're out the door. So what the system has done has set up a system of reward, prestige, survival in these various professions based on going with the orthodoxy and not questioning it. And this means that, I mean, we saw it. We do have a recent example how doctors just go with the party line and go with what they're told rather than question anything. We're seeing scientists do that. The paranormal. Why do we call it the paranormal? What? There's no para to it. It's normal. It's just that it's outside the orthodox normal, which is why they call it para. And so we are in a system that is set up, excuse me, systematically to keep us in the box, keep us in the perceptual box. And all these people that are put in these positions of apparent expertise, not really, a lot of the time, in medicine and science and academia and all these other different professions. Those that toe the line, don't question, don't ask the big questions, and even if they do, they keep it to themselves. They're the ones the population look to as experts to tell them what to think, to tell them how things are. So you again have got this feedback loop between perception and experts and perception, perception and experts. Everywhere you look, there are these feedback loops between the target population and the perception of reality that the manipulators want the target population to have. And, people will be well aware over the years what happens if you step out of the box. If you start asking the big questions, you start talking about them. So people can even think you're crazy, but they certainly dismiss you as a kook, crazy, pseudoscientist, and all the rest of it. And so there is many years ago, back in the 1990s, I used to make the point that humans have out-sheep the sheep, because at least the sheep need a sheepdog to keep them in line. Humans keep themselves in line. And they keep themselves in line by accepting what they're told about reality, what they're told about their self-identity, what they're told about events. And anyone among them that steps out of that, I know this from long experience, and starts questioning these norms, it's not necessarily the manipulators that target you, though they do that sometimes. It's the population that target you. And you can see this with religion, where different religions with different belief systems, look at the conflicts and the wars we've had between people of different belief systems, because actually the same belief system in a different guise, because they believe that what they believe, everyone should believe. And what is that if not exactly what people like me have experienced, where we're abused and ridiculed for having a different view of reality to the mass of the population? Everywhere you look, you see this same recurring theme of perceptual infusion, not least through intimidation and repetition. If you come out of the womb and your parents, who've been through the same system you're about to go through, start impacting upon your perception, and then you go to school, and now a teacher is first of all dictating your life, when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can go to the toilet, when you can eat, when you can talk, but also impacting upon your perception of reality by what they're telling you reality is in all its different forms. And then you go on to university or college, and the same thing happens, but at a higher level. And you only pass your exams overwhelmingly if you tell the system what it's told you to believe. And then you go out into the world, and you're meeting people who've been through the same system that you've just been through, but earlier. And everyone's supporting the belief of everyone else that this is how reality is. This is what the world is. This is how it works. They may differ in the detail, but the basic themes are the same. And you turn on the media, and the media is telling you the same stuff that the school told you, and the university told you. And scientists are coming on the TV and telling you the same, and academics and doctors. Is it any wonder that people go through their entire lives believing something that is complete crap? Provably so. Of course, they'll believe it. What breaks that cycle, and here we come back to causes and removing the cause. What breaks that cycle is if you expand your sense of awareness out of this reality, this fake reality, what the Gnostics used to call the bad copy reality. And you expand it out beyond it, because then you're starting to tap into levels of information, awareness, insight that you won't get from the matrix, if you like, from the simulation. And that is what we truly call awakening. What are you awakening from? You're not awakening to something, because you're already that. You're awakening from the fake reality that's been instilled in you from cradle to grave. And suddenly the world looks a completely different place. You will have been through this process, as anyone who awakens from the coma goes through. And you you start to say things like, I've had this said to me so many times, why couldn't I see it before? It was so obvious. Because you were getting your information from the matrix before. Now you're getting it from beyond the matrix. Now the world looks very different. And so you see
David,
you see the reason why the effort is constant and incessant to hold us in a limited sense of perception, a limited sense of the possible, a limited sense of everything, because they have to keep us in that perceptual box. Because if they don't, it's over. We are able then to see what we couldn't see before.
In March of this year, I was invited to the Monroe Institute and got to know a little bit about the work of Robert Monroe and his experiences out of the body. And thankfully, we have people like you and like him and like many others that are pursuing those bigger questions. Robert's journey was interesting out of the body because he did encounter some things as he started expanding more that awareness that gave him a broader sense of this reality. And I know you've come to those conclusions as well. So it almost feels like there's layers to this as well. Like until we get into that complete pure consciousness state, there are some like elevators that we have to get to reach those levels. What are those floors, we could say, in that elevator that we need to pass through before we get into the greater awareness?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and a very important one. The way I see it, symbolically, quite probably literally, is that we are operating in like onion skins. These skins, obviously not an onion, they are levels of perception. They are energetic levels of perception. And the big thing I would suggest we need to remember is how little we know. Now, this is very, very important, because what I've seen over the decades I've been doing this is how people have awoken from the norm to a point and then stopped. And because they think they got it. Well, they haven't got it. None of us have got it. We're getting it as best we can. And I've always gone along with the principle of whatever we know, there's always more to know. It's the principle that was articulated, it is said, by Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher, who was a mentor of Plato, etc. And he basically said, to know is to know you know nothing. That's basically what true knowledge is. And this is vital for this reason. When you stay and keep to that reality, that sense of reality, there's no point where you say, I've got it, and you start to coagulate into like an eddy in the river. River's flowing past, but you're now a whirlpool going round and round and round because you got it now. Well, you ain't. You know, I've watched the so-called alternative media since the COVID period that has come in and basically hijacked the central core of the alternative media. The algorithms love them. I wonder why. Their funding loves them. And what they've done is they've come in with the belief that politics is it. Politics, support Trump, he'll sort it. And, you know, Trump is not even a smear on the scale of the conspiracy, which is founded on our whole sense of reality being completely different to what we think it is and we experience it as. And they've fallen into the trap, actually at quite a low level. They've realized there's some kind of conspiracy going on and then stopped. It's the deep state. That's the conspiracy. No, that's an expression of it. It's not it. It's an expression of it. Because they've got this idea that they got it. And what I've done over the years and still do to this moment is whatever I know there's always more to know. The one thing we know for sure is there's always more to know. And so you might grasp levels of it, but there's always more to understand. So you don't drop into the eddy. You keep flowing with the river because you're looking for what you don't know. And that means that you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into what people call the rabbit hole, because you know that there's no point in this life where that's going to stop if you pursue it. And what tends to happen is, like in the early 1990s, I uncovered this global cult and how it works and how the manipulation of the material world happens. But I knew that that was only one level of it. So what don't I know? And then it takes you into levels where there's a non-human force, like an astral force, that's manipulating humanity via this global cult. And then you go into levels of the fact that this reality is a fake reality and it's actually a simulated reality, very much akin to the Matrix movies. And that happens because you know at any point there's always more to know. If you're not aware of that, or you don't live that, then you stop. So peeling off these perceptual levels of the onion skins can be broken by that awareness that there's always more to know, because you don't stop. You might grasp something and then you go, okay, so what else is there to know? And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's the way that's true awakening, because these levels are coming off. For instance, if you look at the central core of what's called the alternative media, what I call the MAGA media, they have moved from the limited view of reality that most of the population have. But all they've done is widen the prison cell slightly to see, oh, there's a conspiracy going on. Oh, it's the deep state. But that's it. And what has to happen is all the bars have to go, and all the preconceived ideas have to go, all the preconceived perceptions, this is how it is, have to go. And then we free ourselves, we free our minds, we free our awareness to flow out beyond the simulation into knowledge and awareness that we never thought possible before. And the world starts to look a very, very different place. But when you do that, and you talk about it publicly, you're dealing with a mass of the population. It is changing. People are starting to wake up. But you're still dealing with a mass of the population that will see you as crazy, that will see you as out of your head. What do you mean simulation? What are you talking about? And so you have to make a decision. Am I going to go with this? Am I going to speak out about this and take all that stuff? Or am I just going to keep my mouth shut and basically stay in the box? And what I would say is that when you truly start to awaken and delete these energetic skins, you reach a point of awareness where basically things start to meet, in the sense that you don't care anymore what people say about you, what people do about you, what people think about you, because you have reached a point of awareness where you realize it doesn't matter. You know, we are consciousness. We are a state of infinite awareness. What does it matter if people in a human body, disconnected from their true I, programmed by the system to believe nonsense? And I understand why. It's incessant, like I say. You are going to be affected by what those people say about you. Well, why? And you reach a point where you realize it just doesn't matter what people say about you. What matters, and the only thing that matters to me in terms of my work, is whether what I'm saying can be supported by the evidence. If I believe it can, then I'll say it. And how people receive it is completely up to them. But it's their right to receive it as they choose. It's my right to have my opinion based on what I've researched. And I can tell you from, these decades that I've been doing this and all this abuse and ridicule I've had is that you can survive all that because it doesn't matter unless you make it matter. People say, oh, I'm offended. Okay, well, you've just described it perfectly. You're offended. You have chosen to be offended. It's your choice. That's your reality. You created it. You're offended. I choose not to be offended because I understand why people say what they do, given the incessant programming that we're all subjected to. But so I don't get offended. And people all the time say that someone's affected them. But they've chosen to be affected. Someone says something about you that you don't like. Well, you can say, "Oh, thanks for sharing that with us," or you can be offended, and you can break down. It's a choice, and you can speak your truth. I mean, I've met so many people over the years. I'm sure you have too, who are in families, for instance, that not only don't have the same view of life, but actually are vehemently hostile to them for having the view they do. Like be in a religious household and not believe in religion, but see it see the reality in another way. See how that works out. And the pressure all the time is to conform. And the question is, are we going to fall for that and can literally conform to that? Or are we going to say, no, this is my truth and I'm going to speak it. And if you don't like it, well, do the other thing, because that's all right. Because you ain't going to affect me speaking my truth. And, I hope that I'm a example, given the scale of ridicule I've been through in the last 36 years, that you can speak your truth. You're not saying that everyone's got to believe it. That's up to them. But you're speaking it. And you can survive so long as you realize it doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't matter what people do about you. What matters is if you can justify to yourself that what you're saying is true. And whatever you're saying is true, there'll always be more to know.
David, I feel like we're really getting into the core of your teachings, and I'm aware that we're just over the hour, but I really feel that a powerful way to end is to talk about why you believe that the heart, or you call it the heart vortex, is one of those keys, one of those major keys to human freedom, consciousness freedom, and to liberate ourselves from this third dimensional reality and see beyond what we really truly are.
Well, the Gnostics from hundreds of years ago in Egypt and elsewhere, they left writings that were found in a place called Nag Hammadi in Egypt in 1945, become known as the Nag Hammadi Library. And first of all, they talk about this reality being a bad copy, and the quote God that people worship is actually the tyrant that created the bad copy, the simulation, as I would call it. But also they talk about the fact that we have a divine spark within us, and that divine spark, well, I mean, in line with what I've been saying, it's a good analogy again. That divine spark is encircled by these onion skins of perceptual layers and levels. And the divine spark wants to express itself, but it can't be heard for most people, because it's the people's perceptions, incarnate perceptions, are overwhelmed by the programming. But for me, the heart is a connection to that divine spark. And once you open the heart, and the heart is far more powerful than the brain. The brain is the village idiot compared with the heart. And if you move into this area, you start to connect with that divine spark. What is that divine spark? It's that part of us that is the vehicle to connect us with out there. And people they talk about love in a way that love is always doing nice things, or what appear to be nice things, but it can be very naive things as well. Always think the best in people. Well, that's okay, but also be aware that that might not be the case, because if you don't, you're going to get scammed. And so the true level of what I would call heart consciousness is extremely streetwise and extremely wise as wisdom compared with the brain, which is a processor of information. And that heart wisdom is what can override the programming which is going on here. And if you look at society, the heart is targeted all the time. You look at what I call these dramas, these wars, this suffering, these horrors that go on. They're all about closing the heart so that people just they cease to feel the emotional trauma they would otherwise feel or think they would. But that's only one level of the heart. Again, when you start to move through that into the and move these skins of perception away, there is another heart in there. And it's a heart that says, I'm going to do what I know to be right, no matter what the consequences. Because consequences or perceived consequences are what stop the vast majority of people doing what they know to be right. Because they go through a list of consequences, potential consequences. If I do this, what will happen? What will happen to me? What will authority do? What will my pastor say? But once you get into that deeper level of the heart, that pure wisdom, that is the observer, doesn't get caught in the drama. It's the observer, the wise observer. It will never say, what are the consequences of doing what I believe to be right? It will just do them. And that is the divine spark speaking, which knows that this nonsense that we call the world, this nonsense that makes us believe certain things and react certain ways, is all nonsense. It's all a manipulated game. It can see that. And so it starts to operate above it. From that level, it doesn't care what you say about it, because it knows it's all nonsense. And it certainly doesn't care about potential consequences for doing what it believes to be right, because it will just walk. It doesn't know any other way. To consider consequences is to consider not doing what you believe to be right. That level of the heart would never do that. And this for me, this is what takes us out there. What we call death. Just to, I mean, if you have a biological computer that's decoding this matrix into a sense of reality, then when it ceases to do that, like this computer ceases to do it, then the screen goes blank. It's not doing it anymore. And what do we say? Oh, my computer's died. Well, that's what happens. This is what death is. Death is the biological computer ceasing to function, ceasing to decode this reality. And suddenly you find yourself, as near-death experiencers have in endless numbers, in a completely different reality to the one you were experiencing a few seconds ago. And it's because this has stopped decoding the matrix. And the way out is through this. Because if you remain attached to this reality and all the thought and emotional connections to it, then you'll hit this, what Buddhists call the wheel of samsara. You'll be back in, reincarnated back in, because this overlay, this fake reality, can only survive with a throughput of consciousness awareness. And if you became aware of the nonsense when you leave this reality, you're out of here, because you know it's nonsense. You know that the true self is a state of infinite awareness. So you're out, and you're connecting with that state of infinite awareness, because that's what you believe yourself to be. That's what you are self-identifying with. That's what you connect with, out. But if you still hold perceptual, emotional, mental connections to this reality, then you won't get out. You'll go into the wheel of samsara, because this force, this astral force, if it didn't have this trap to keep consciousness, souls, whatever you want to call them, it coming in and out of this reality, then it would run out of people or run out of souls very, very quickly, because you'd come out of the body and you say, well, so I'm not bloody going back there. I'm out of here. So they want to keep you in. And so this matrix, this overlay, has other levels too. And one of them is the astral level. And so it's like a fake heaven. And people or souls leave the body and they enter this fake heaven. They go to the light, the fake light, up the tunnel and all that stuff. It's all part of the whole manipulation to keep you in the matrix. And then you come back in another form with another experience. And the reason that they do this, and there has to be a reason, obviously, is that they are feeding off our mental and emotional energy. This this force, this astral force that's created this whole fake reality and its astral levels, the fake heaven, it's feeding off our energy. Every time that we feel emotion, every time we feel or think, we're generating energy, which relates to the nature of the emotion and the nature of the thought. So like I said earlier, depression, fear, anxiety, resentment, hatred, regret, all these things are low vibrational energy, and it's the low vibrational energy that this force feeds off. It's what Robert Monroe, in his astral travels, he coined the word loosh. They're feeding off human loosh, in other words, the mental and emotional energy we're giving off, and so they have to try to keep us in this trap of reincarnation, so that we keep producing loosh. And so when we leave the body, the manipulation goes on, unless we are aware by that point what the game is, in which case we leave the matrix, the astral level, all of it. We leave it in totality. But that is what they're trying to stop. And so, for instance, you talk to near-death experiencers, and they, of course, don't go into the wheel of samsara and come back in another form. They come back in the same form when their body is revived. So they don't see what's on the other side of the veil. They only see this side of it, astrally, this side of it. But they say how they see Jesus, or they see the figure of the religion that they believed in. And of course, in the human world, we're told to connect the light to God and spirituality. I've seen the light. And so when you leave the body and a light comes, you know, and some religious hero appears, who's not really, you do what they say. You go up the tunnel, or you go towards the light. You cross the veil, which near-death experiencers don't do, and you come back here. And I've written about this at great length in my recent books, having talked to and seen the experiences or experiences of people who, first of all, near-death experiences, yes, and the themes are very common. But also, I've talked to people and seen the recordings of people who say they remember the pre-incarnation point where they incarnated and just before, and they tell a very common tale too. And it's very clear that the wheel of samsara is very technological in nature. You know, we think all the astral must be, that's spirit, that's heaven. That's not like this. Won't have technology. Oh, it does. It's just in a different vibrational band than here. The technology that's coming in here to take over more and more, not least the fusion of humans with artificial intelligence, which is their big goal, is coming out of the astral. That's where it's coming from. It's coming out of the astral into the underground bases of the secret projects where they interact with these entities, and and then it flows into the public arena. And you'll notice that as this technological explosion has gone on, it's seamless. There's not a situation where people are sitting around a table strumming their fingers, waiting for the next level of technology to be invented or discovered. It just one thing follows the other, and it gets faster and faster and faster and faster. The advancement gets faster and faster and faster. Well, there's a reason for that. It already exists in the underground bases, the secret projects, and in the astral, and it's being played out in a particular sequence. It's like a carrot in front of a donkey. Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. You use a different analogy. Pulling you towards dystopia. On the basis of, the technology's advancing. Yeah, but why is it advancing in the way that it is? It's to control you. Because if you have a situation which the oligarchs of Silicon Valley and other parts of the world, China, want, they want to fuse humans with artificial intelligence. And that will mean that artificial intelligence will be doing human thinking and human emotional reaction. We won't even be controlling our own emotions anymore, or our own thoughts. They'll be delivered to us. Now, what do you think those artificial intelligence thoughts will not ask? The big questions. Who am I? Where am I? What is this place? Won't ask them. And that's the idea. It's been the ultimate goal all along, to create a situation where the human mind, human consciousness, is deleted from the perceptual process. So they don't have to manipulate information anymore. They don't have to suppress information anymore. You'll just get your thoughts and emotional reactions direct through artificial intelligence. You'll become basically a computer on someone else's internet. And that's what I've been warning about for decades. And look around. Donald Trump's pushing this so-called big, beautiful bill. And one of its, one part of it is that the states of America will not be able to regulate artificial intelligence for 10 years. Well, in 10 years, artificial intelligence will be running the world and being fused with humans. 2 days into his presidency, 2 days in January, he wheeled out in the White House Larry Ellison and Sam Altman to announce up to $500 billion AI project called Stargate. This is where it's going, and it's being orchestrated from the astral. People like Trump and Ellison, Altman, they're only vehicles, they're only gophers. It's all being orchestrated from the astral. So we are in a period now where the expansion of our consciousness to beyond the limitations of this fake reality is absolutely vital, because that's where the answers lie. That's where the true self-identity lies, and that's where the insights lie. That's where the understanding lies. That's where our power to change things lies. Not in the matrix, beyond it. And the heart is a connection to get there. And but it's not. I'm going to be nicey because I want people to like me. Heart. And some people can misunderstand it, I would suggest, on that level. It's that deeper level of wisdom, of doing what you know to be right, irrespective of the consequences or what appear to be the consequences, potential consequences. You just do it. And that changes everything, changes your life, and collectively it can change this reality. But it's amazing to me. Well, maybe not when you see how it's done, but it's amazing to me how easy it is to control the perceptions of humans. And even now, the truly awakening are big time the exception, not the rule. And but what can you do? You do what you can. You do what you know to be right, and what happens happens. But you can see how the suppression of information on one side and the programming of perception on the other is a very, very powerful combination. But we're talking now. You can go on the internet if you're searching for the answers, and you can access this information. It's not going to be put before you by CNN or MSNBC or the BBC. It's not going to be put before you by the central core of the alternative media, but it's there. And when you ask the big questions, who am I? Where am I? What is this place? How can I make a difference? Then that interacts with the quantum level, and it will put before you answers to those questions. And you'll find yourself coming across information in a synchronistic way that you think is, oh, that's a coincidence. No, it's not. You've created it yourself. You've asked the question and you've meant it, not conceptually, you've meant it. And therefore, the answer's put before you. And it's before you because you've asked the question and meant it. If you don't ask the question, then you won't get the answer. And most people are not asking the question because they don't realize that it's a question that needs asking. And that's the power of program, power of suppression.
David, we end every episode with a segment called The Final Trio, really rapid fire questions to finish off, personalized to each guest. Before that, where would you send people to connect with you, with your work, everything that you're putting out there? I know you've been deplatformed. I know you've been going through all of these things, but there's still so many ways where people can connect with the vast field of information that you put out there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. If I'm so crazy, why all the efforts to stop people hearing what I'm saying? I'm currently banned from 30 European countries and Australia. The central core of the alternative media, putting out the political level and all that stuff, they're not banned from any of those places. But I'm putting out this deeper stuff, and suddenly I am. And it's an interesting question. You can get me at davidicke.com, but we also have a media platform called iconic.com, and there you can see news shows every day, but also full-length documentaries looking at these deeper things. I've made many of them now, looking at these deeper levels, looking at reality and how it works, and how we can redefine ourselves as consciousness rather than the myopia into identifying as a human personality. One's an experience, the other one's an I. So iconic.com is it was created by my son Jamie, with big help from my elder son, Garrett. Both of them are on Iconic alongside myself and Christiana Icke, Richard Willett, and many others. And I'm absolutely delighted with what's being produced.
Beautiful. We'll put all the links in the description where people can go directly to that. And for the final trio, all these questions are personalized to the guest. You can answer them in any way that you want. But the first one is, what does the word conspiracy mean to you?
Oh, well, this is an interesting point. The CIA put out in the 1960s to American media outlets that those that were questioning the Kennedy assassination and other assassinations in the 60s should be called conspiracy theorists. And they are promoting conspiracies. And what's interesting is that this has now become a reflex action response from mainstream media and people, a lot of people in general. That if someone's saying they're conspiracy, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Well, what does conspiracy mean to me? Well, it means the dictionary definition, which is two or more people working together, conspiring together to bring about a particular end, usually illegal. You look at the law in country after country, and there's conspiracy to this, conspiracy to that, conspiracy to the other. But the same people that acknowledge that say, oh, no, conspiracies, they don't happen. Well, of course they happen. Conspiracies are the norm. What, two or more people getting together to manipulate an outcome and screw someone else? Of course it's happening all the time. And it's that's what it means to me. And it's amazing how this, again, the programming can create a situation in which the reflex action response to conspiracy is, conspiracy theories. Well, how about having a look if it's true or not? Oh, no, don't do that. Conspiracies don't exist. Oh, no. Okay. Ridiculous.
I was watching your documentary Renegade, the life story of yourself, and toward the end of that, you were on the pier looking out and you were seeing these children write the words freedom on the sand. And it brought up a lot of emotion for you. And I'm curious to know, what does a world look like in full freedom where all of humanity is in that state of being? What does that world feel like to you?
Well, first of all, that shot in the movie where I'm standing on the pier, as you say, and we're looking out. We were at the pier for a completely different reason, and these two kids and their mum were writing freedom in big letters in the sand, right in front of us. And from the way that day unfolded, the chances of being there, the statistical chances of being there when they did it, were absolutely ridiculous because of all the different things that happened. And we ended the day standing there, and they did it. And so that was a serious case of synchronicity, if you like, create real reality in another way. Well, I have a simple philosophy, see. Do what you like, so long as you don't impose it on anyone else. And if people lived by that, it wouldn't need any laws. Because, people say, well, what about murder then? Well, that's imposing your will on someone else, isn't it? And so it's real simple. Do what you like, because you'll learn from it, good or bad, but don't impose it on anyone else. And that, for me, is freedom. I've used the example years ago when we were having a lot of raves. Never been to a rave, but there were complaints that these raves were going on and it was affecting the residents in the area and all that stuff. And I thought, well, okay, now what we have is a world in which some have to win so others can lose, and some have to lose so others can win. Well, why can't we accommodate people in a way that doesn't affect others? So if people want to rave, well, give them a rave, just away from, give them a location, just away from people that would be affected by it that don't want to be affected by it. Then they have their rave and people aren't affected by it. These things can happen once there is respect for another's right to make their choices and have their views and have their opinions and have their lifestyles, so long as they don't impose it on anyone else. And this, okay, there are challenges in that, in various situations, but as a principle, that means people are free to express themselves as they see fit without others having that imposed upon them who don't want it. And respect, that's what's missing. You have an opinion that's different to someone else, so you get abused for it, or you get ridiculed for it. But if there was respect for the rights of everyone to have their view and lifestyle, then they'd say, I don't agree with you, but I support your right to say it, even though it differs from what I believe. It's respect is what's missing. And if we had that and were willing to accommodate other views and other lifestyles in terms of them happening, then we'd live in a different world. But we don't.
It's so interesting because as we were talking about conspiracy and the word, a quote came to mind from one of my favorite books, which is The Alchemist, which says, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. And the last question I'll ask you, David, is really about your legacy and what you feel is still driving you on despite all the pushback that you've received. And that is that you've said that there's an energetic field around you that you never feel alone, that's always there to support. What have you felt into is that energetic field that maybe you can't see with your eyes, or perhaps you have, that is still supporting this call to the message that you're here to bring through for humanity?
Well, it's like everything. You come to conclusions about how things are, but then, as they say, there's eating the pudding. There's watching it play out and see if what you've concluded is the way things are happening. So I felt when I had my massive awakening in 1991 that there was some force that was pushing me on. But what you then have to do is see how it plays out. And when I look back over 36 years now, information, insight has been put in front of me endlessly, constantly, as I've gone deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. And every time I think, well, maybe this is as far as I'll go in this life, it goes deeper and goes deeper and goes deeper. And it's still going deeper, deeper and deeper and deeper. I've just finished another book, or nearly finished it, which goes deeper, deeper still. And so there is, it would seem from my experience, some force that wants to get this information out. And it's working through those people who are willing to do it. Because it's no good being a cul-de-sac of knowledge. I mean, people say knowledge is power. No, it's not. The use of knowledge is power. Knowledge that you don't use, nice one I have. And so those people that are willing to circulate this information, that are willing to work to uncover it with help, it seems, they're the ones that will get the information. And also, again, I've had this insatiable desire to know, who am I? Where am I? What is this place? What's going on? How does it work? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And this interaction with the quantum realm it also puts this information in front of me. And therefore, anyone can do it. Not about the chosen. It's about those that choose to do it, to pursue these questions, and to do it not conceptually, but to do it because they mean it, and the answers come. They do. So why do I keep going? Well, because I'm not done yet, and I won't be done until I leave this reality. Because there's no point when I will step back and retire. I might do things in a different way as time moves on, but I'll never retire. I'll never stop. Not least because I have this insatiable desire to know, and also because I have children and I have grandchildren, and I see all the other children and grandchildren in the world, and I don't want them to live in the reality, the experience that this force is planning for. And so what can I do? I can put information in front of people, and then they decide what they think of it, and whether to act upon it. But the thought of not doing, the thought of just stopping and walking away and saying, I've done my bit, I'm retiring now. No way. And over the years, over the decades, I've seen people come into this arena. I've seen them be flavor of the month for a while and then disappear. And if you really do have a grasp of what's planned, you don't walk away. It's impossible. I find it impossible anyway. You can't walk away. You can't walk away and get on with another life, knowing what's coming. And then every time you see the news, you think, oh God, that's another step on the road. No, you do what you can for as long as you can. And I've always been driven in that way, and I still am driven. And I tell you, when I started out in 1990, there was no alternative media. It didn't exist. Just a few disparate individuals, different parts of the world. But in those days, I couldn't fill a phone booth with interest in these subjects. Nothing. I was talking to handfuls of people. Talked in New England to 5 people in someone's front room. Talked to 8 people in near Chicago once. And this is what it was like. And I know people think, the awakening should be faster. And I think that too, especially when we're looking down the barrel of an oncoming AI. But the number of people awakening, not awake now compared with 1990, 91 is fantastic. And but what I feel is that they have been, not everyone, nothing like everyone, but large numbers of them have been, shall we say, have been collectively edited by this takeover of the alternative media, and they've been taken from the freeway into a cul-de-sac called "Politics is the Answer," and they need to get out of that cul-de-sac fast and get back on the bloody freeway, and or back in the river, or whichever analogy you want to use, because there's one hell of a lot more to know beyond Donald Trump.
David, it's such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I just wanted to acknowledge you for playing such a huge role in freeing humanity's mind and doing it with such force, like the roar of a lion, like Osho said. And yeah, you're an inspiration for the future generations, brother. I would love to continue these conversations with you, and thank you infinitely for the work that you're here and you're still doing and carrying out with all of the integrity and force that I know you're doing it with. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's people like you that come along, see it, start communicating it. That gives me enormous pleasure. Because it was a lonely place a long time ago. And people like you that see beyond the politics. That's the way that that's the information, that's the awareness that we need to have circulating. So every time I talk to someone like yourself, who's come into this, but come into this from an expanded level rather than Trump or Harris, it gives me enormous pleasure. So, congratulations to you as well, mate.